Greetings, children, and welcome to a discussion. This is part 2 of a specific topic on Wings of Fire, the villains. If you haven't seen part 1 yet and would like to check it out, I will have the video linked in the card above, or in the description. I'm going to be a lot more positive in this video than I was in the last one, because today I'm talking about 2 very well written and developed villain characters. Of course, that's my opinion. Also, happy Halloween! It's finally the end of October and the day we've all been waiting for. Do you plan to do anything today, or will you stay in? Maybe watch some scary movies and popcorn? Alright, let's get into the video. There are 2 characters I'm going to be mentioning. Let's start off with Albatross. Personally, I really love Albatross as a villain character. Even though he didn't last long, really only having a few pages to himself, great impact. You could feel and understand his motivations for what he did, whether you believe it was right or wrong the way he executed it. I'd be very concerned if you thought it was right, though. Of course, I'll be mentioning plenty of spoilers for the books, specifically the second arc and Darkstalker. So if you haven't read them already and want to without prior knowledge of events, maybe come back later. You definitely won't regret diving into this series. Albatross was a Sea Wing back in the times where Darkstalker was alive. Well, awake. He was a very special Sea Wing, though. He was an Animus. An Animus dragon is a dragon with the powerful ability to be able to do anything with simple words of command. This would include, but is not limited to, enchanting jewelry to decide a queen, a mirror to spy on other dragons, a sapphire that lets you visit dreams, or even a bowl that duplicates any item you put in it if you say please. It is said there is a horrible cost to using this power, though. It's believed that the more you use Animus magic, the more you lose your soul. It will rot and you will become heartless and evil. It is unknown if this is true or not, and really goes down to your own personal opinion or guess as to if it's right or wrong. But the reason this is believed is because of Albatross. Queen Lagoon, the Sea Wing Queen at the time when Albatross lived, would get him to use his Animus powers a lot. We see his actions and his downfall in the eyes of Fathom, a young Animus Sea Wing being trained by Albatross in how to utilize his ability. One day, it had seemed like Albatross had snapped very suddenly. He marked a devastating moment in Korean history, the Royal Sea Wing Massacre. Skywings were visiting the above-water palace to talk with Queen Lagoon. Enter Albatross, full of burning resentment and hatred that we hadn't been shown before. He slaughtered the Skywing visitors, although one managed to escape injured, and the Queen and her husband Humpback, among many others. Once Fathom killed Albatross at the threat of his friend Indigo's life, it was widely accepted that the elderly prince had gone mad from using his power so much. So what makes him such a good villain? At the start, we see no signs of his future treachery. He seems perfectly fine and maybe even a little joyful to Fathom. That's what I want to focus on. This was in Fathom's perspective, and he was young and excited and imaginative. It would be very easy for him to pass over any hidden dark emotions that Albatross might have been feeling. It seems he was good at hiding it as well, as he had the whole palace shocked. I think that this hatred towards Queen Lagoon and the royal family had been in place for a long while, and continued to grow and grow until it was exploding out the surface in the massacre. I'm not sure it had anything to do with losing a soul. He said it himself. Queen Lagoon had been taking advantage of him constantly, and he never got a say. He was supposed to scramble underneath her every command, and he hated that. He knew he could do so much more, but Lagoon never gave him the chance. This anger rose by the day, until he finally snapped. Even though he is not a main villain, and we get so little time spent with him, he comes out as a very well-made, well-developed character. You can understand his motives, and maybe even relate to where he's coming from. This, while it doesn't necessarily define a good villain, it tremendously adds to them in a positive way. Albatross has depth, emotional depth, and comes from a place common to a lot of people. But he went about it the wrong way, with terrible actions, and that is what makes him a good villain. That is why I love him as a villain. There is another, even larger villain than Albatross himself, though. That would be a certain Nightwing Icewing hybrid we all know and love, or hate, living during the same period as Albatross did. Darkstalker. I'm sure we are all familiar with this major villain, the big dilemma of the second arc. and one of the perspectives in a book that goes by his own name, Darkstalker. 2,000 years in the past from what we know as the present day, Darkstalker was born in the Night Kingdom to his Nightwing mother, Foeslayer, and his Icewing father, Prince Arctic. He was born under all three of the moons in their fullest phase, the brightest night. This means he gained the Nightwing abilities of Future Sight and Mind Reading at a boosted power, along with the Animus trait from his father. He was presented to have a charming, charismatic, and carefree personality. His intentions had always been good, but he didn't understand the way he executed his intentions was very wrong. Darkstalker was manipulative and selfish. He knew how to twist his words and charm other dragons into doing what he wanted. Even since the beginning, when he had just hatched along with his sister Whiteout, he had the thought that he could share his powers with a sibling, but chose not to. Soon, at the Night Kingdom's prestigious school, he would meet another Nightwing Dragonette called Clearsight. Clearsight was a very powerful future seer, and could see all the thousands of different paths that the future could go, as well as farther into the future than any others. Of course, both of them had foreseen that they would meet. Eventually, Clearsight, Darkstalker, and Fathom all became friends. Fathom had heard of another Animus in the Night Kingdom, and had come to teach him that using his powers were bad. Darkstalker did not like the thought of not being able to use his Animus abilities. He enchanted a scroll to put all of his powers into, so if you were to write on it a spell, it would come true. He used this as a way of avoiding losing his soul. He also enchanted a combination of an hourglass and a telescope to be able to tell how much good a dragon had left in them with sand. Black indicated good, and white indicated evil. He used it on himself to show he was full of black sand and hardly any white sand. That may have been the case at the time, but as time progressed, and he manipulated Clearsight's future sight into only seeing the good futures, as well as hiding the spells he'd write on the scroll, it was becoming evident the black sand was depleting. Eventually, once Clearsight realized his deceit, she knew she had to stop it. Darkstalker had big dreams to become king with Clearsight at his side, but Clearsight knew that would lead to only bad things. She foresaw it this way, especially after what he did to his own father, using his Animus magic to make Arctic obey his every command, and then ultimately forced him to disembowel himself. So she gave him an enchanted bracelet that would put him to sleep forever, leading him right under where she foresaw a mountain crumbling to bury him under. Darkstalker was dealt with, for 2,000 years at least. He was still alive, because he enchanted his scales to be invincible, but he was asleep. So, to present day, he wakes up and finds the first Nightwing with abilities in a long while, Moonwatcher. He would talk to Moon in her head, gaining her trust, until in Book 8, Peril set his Animus magic free by burning the scroll as kept it. He lifted out of the mountain and was in the world once again. His return was very conflicting for everyone. He seemed nice at first, handing out powers to Nightwings who asked for them. They weren't limited to the usual mind reading or future seeing either. He had a plan to bring the Nightwings back to their old kingdom, where he could rule them as king, and many did follow him, though some did stay with the rings. There was something not right about him, though. He was very clearly grief-stricken, and had a disregard for the Nightwings in this current time, as he would try to turn them into Clearsight. He tried desperately to make her, but it never worked. He couldn't get her right. That was because Clearsight opposed him, and he was trying to make that false. Darkstalker tried to take control of the Nightwings, and manipulate the other tribes. In secret, he started the spread of a deadly fatal disease within the Icewing Kingdom. Then a war started. Darkstalker's unrelenting hatred of the Icewings got him to fight them, and they fought back. It was clear to the protagonists Darkstalker's reign of terror, so they knew they had to do something. How could they get rid of a dragon who can't be killed, and scales are immune to Animus magic? A strawberry. Yes, a strawberry. Turtle, the seeming Animus protagonist, enchanted a strawberry that they got Darkstalker to swallow, so he turned into a small Nightwing-Rainwing hybrid dragonette, unaware of what he once used to be. So what makes him such a good villain character? He posed an obvious threat, even though he was defeated by a tiny berry, and genuinely conflicted many dragons in if he was good or bad. Heck, even the fandom is divided about this. Like Albatross, we get a backstory, and we understand what his motives are. and can possibly relate to them. He has good intentions, but he doesn't understand that his way of going about them is wrong. He can't get himself to understand why it's bad. He's manipulative and selfish, dismissing the feelings or even the lives of other dragons in favor of his own feelings. We know that he wants the world to be good, and he wants to make a good difference, but his views are too twisted for him to be able to see what the right way to go about that is. This was even brought up in the books. He realizes that he's doing wrong when he is told he is doing wrong, but still wants to continue with his goals. He asks for guidance, someone to help him see what the right thing to do is. We know, and so do the protagonists, this can't be possible. He's too manipulative, wanting his own way, and there can't be a dragon there 24/7 to correct his every decision. He is desperate to change, but it's clear this is impossible, or at the very least, highly unlikely. That's what makes Darkstalker a villain. Although he was willing to try and reform, it wouldn't really be reforming. He's also simply too powerful. Even his own good and evil detector turned on him, showing that he was almost completely full of white sand, which was the color indicating evil. Of course, this is all just my opinion from personal preference and my observations. If you have a different opinion from what I've mentioned in this video, feel free to comment below. I am definitely willing to have a civilized conversation about stuff like this. That's all I have to say for today then. Please leave a comment for suggestions of what I can discuss next. And if you like what you see, subscribe for more. Have a happy Halloween, and farewell friends!